Hello there, Stage13 once again. This is my Dawn of Dreams, no damage hard run. We're on stage 13, it's called The Wild Boat Ride, and before I started this commentary, for some reason that title made me think of the Red Hot Catholic Love episode of South Park, so I was singing the Catholic boat song for longer than I dare admit, and I entertained myself, which is the most important part, but I will hold off for your enjoyment so that I don't murder your ears with a rendition of that hilarious song. So this is a very hard test of Valor. Do you see the ninjas? You might notice that they're a slightly different colour to the last ones. These ones I think are called Hell Genma ninjas, or Hell ninjas. Watch how fast these motherfuckers attack. They are absolutely brutal. They are literally insidious. All they do is attack, and they attack so quickly, they do so much damage, and it's really difficult to time a blocked critical, because if you miss, you're dead. So to do this, I swap characters a lot to kind of space myself from the onslaught, and all you have to do is kill those hell spiders, or hell, whatever the hell they are, ninja spider-men. And then if you get the gold, you get the Irokai, or Hiroki, which is, I believe, a shotgun for Ohatsu. Shotguns do a lot of damage, but they've got no range, and the only times I ever use that character is for range-specific environments. Ooh, that's what I didn't speak about in the last video. Shit! So the room before Mitsunari in the previous video, if you go back to that room, the one that had the God Hand, you know, bitch player in it, you'll spawn a test of Valor. And the test of Valor there is a really challenging one because it's up against the toughest enemy in the game. It's the Black General, and he has, no kidding, he has more life than some bosses. He will one-shot you with almost every attack he does, and he comes with 3 ninjas that he can summon at any given time. And the strategy for killing him that I used was to knock him on the ground after Isening the 3 ninjas and him from a magic Isen, and then I chain stab him, and it takes about 2 to 3 minutes of chain stabbing to kill him. The rare drop that creature has is the sword I'm using now. It's called the Balmonk. It is, I think, the rarest sword drop on the game, or maybe one of them, suffice to say. And the first time I farmed it, it took me 3 hours, 4 hours maybe. For this guide, it took me 10 minutes, which just goes to show that random drops are bullshit. But also, it's well worth your time, folks. So if you're struggling with this game and you're using this as a Suedo walkthrough, you want to go and farm this weapon. And obviously I've saved you from that because watching people farm is up there with some of the dullest things you could physically watch. And this weapon is very powerful. Very, very powerful. But not quite as powerful as you'd think it would be. So as you can see, I fully upgraded it, so now I have a 188 attack. This is the second most powerful weapon on the game. The first most powerful weapon has an attack power of 300. So if you want to do all 100 levels of the Dark Realm to get that weapon, I recommend you do. And I recommend you do it sooner rather than later because you can use it for longer and get the benefit for longer. That weapon is insane. Every speedrun for this game on YouTube has people using that weapon, and it literally 1 to 2 shots bosses. It's staggeringly powerful. But this is me showing you some rings. I've recently got a comment on this run asking me to leave in some of the leveling screens and things. And every so often I do leave the level screen in, I do leave the equipment screen in for people to, you know, maybe pause it and have a look at some of the stuff and see how detailed that feature of the game is. But firstly, it is a walkthrough, and I do trim that kind of stuff out because unless it's necessary or useful, there's no need for it to be there. And then secondly, the artifacts only really affect this game's emulation on the menus. So for the most, it makes them very weird to look at, hard to see what they are. It took me a handful of time to get used to the menus and to understand, you know, the information that you can't see because of those artifacts. So they're not the best thing to keep in. But here is a pretty eclectic puzzle. You have to enter these warehouses, and what will happen is each of these warehouses will have a picture in it. And the picture will have an amount of animals and you have to count how many animals there are. Depending on the number of animals will depend on the number you need, and then you need to take the 3 numbers to the door and enter it as a code. It's one of those super irreverent and weird puzzles, and the worst part about it is every time you play the game it's different. It's a procedurally generated puzzle, which is just... I mean, sure, it's kind of cool, but the puzzle itself is just fundamentally shit, so it's not too cool. And later on in this level there's another one which is even more extended, which involves just a very strange technique of figuring it out, which I'll explain when we get there. But once you're confident that you've checked all these... That's a door that you need Roberto for. Once you've checked all these doors, and you've got all your numbers, it's pretty much trial and error at that point. You will see me get it first attempt, because when I was playing I understood exactly how the puzzle worked, and I managed to... I think you either go highest to lowest, or lowest to highest. I think that's the rule here, so we'll see when I put the code in. But it's just... It's a really weird way of approaching puzzle design. And I understand why they don't want you to just come here and put in the same number you did the first time and completely skip this sequence. But at the same time, it's just kind of weird. So the number for me was 6, 5, and a 3. So it's highest to lowest, guys. That's how you do that puzzle. And then through here, once you hit the double switch, we're going to be introduced to a new enemy. And it's an enemy that I never fight, because it's got guns, and I have no interest in guns. However, it does do a melee attack, if you stand close enough to it, and you can get an Isen critical off the melee. But it's so much easier to just ignore it, because you can despawn it by entering a room, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So you'll notice we needed the oil from one of those rooms to lubricate this switch. So going in those warehouses, as tedious as it might have seemed, served a double standard. Well, that's not really the best way to put that. Served 2 functions. This is the enemy. This is me despawning him by entering this warehouse. Fuck that guy. That is a great example of how the menus and stuff get artifacted on the emulation. I literally cannot read any of the things I pick up because half the paragraph is missing. You know, you literally have to be an epic name bro of lore design to read in between the lines of all the literature the game offers. And as cool as that is, you know, and as much as Epic enjoys it, I don't. Which is funny because I'm a writer, but just never been my thing, I guess. So here is another puzzle box. We got it second time, which is nice to see. Some of these are really tough, some of them are laughably easy. There doesn't seem to be any real logic behind how difficult they are. You know, it must be a personal thing. Some of them I do really quickly, other times, you know, it takes me 20 attempts. But this is the second puzzle of this level, the second code puzzle. First thing you want to do is block all the time and kill the hell spiders. Because the guy at the back is going to fire rockets at us, and we can block them, and as long as we keep our block up, he will kill the enemies for us, and then we can move over to him and kill him. Once this dude is killed, you have to solve a puzzle. And the puzzle is as follows. There are 6 warehouses. Where we are right now is the 6th warehouse. Where we came from, on the adjacent side of this lane, is the 1st warehouse. You're going to need to know that numbering because it's how you solve the puzzle. Inside these 6 warehouses will be there'll be pictures of animals. And how this works is you need to get the lowest numbers of animals. So the only ones you need to pay attention are to number 1, number 2 and number 3. Number 1 is a whale. I'm not too sure what number 2 is, it might be bears, but suffice to say the only pictures you pay attention to are 1, 2 and 3. And how this works is wherever they're situated, for instance, here is number 2, this is warehouse number 1. So that means that the middle part of the code, the second digit, because there was 2 elephants, is 1. If that makes sense. Wherever the whale is will be the first digit. So for instance, if it's in warehouse number 4, the first digit of the code is 4, the second digit is 1, and wherever the 3 animals are is the final digit. And that's how you figure this out. And once again, it's procedurally generated, so it changes every playthrough. But all I'm looking for here, guys, is 1 and 3, because we've already got 2. As soon as I get 1, I know what the first 2 numbers are, and then as soon as I get 3, I've solved the code. I did look this up on GameFAQs when I was playing, because I had no idea what I was doing. And there's a guide written for this, and the way the person explains how the puzzle is solved is pretty much the most convoluted thing I've ever seen. It's like, imagine a lawyer trying to sell you toothpaste. You know, it's just dumb. This is... So, do you see how that's number 1? That's a whale. This is the 6th warehouse. So the code will be 6, 1, something. But the dude had like a breakdown of grids and like fucking an Excel spreadsheet. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire damn life. Like, why does he make it so complicated when it's really not? You know, so bizarre that somebody would just misconceive how the puzzle works to such an extent that they've got this massive, ridiculous algorithm to figure it out, when all you need to do is look for 1, 2, and 3, and then correlate it to what warehouse they're in. You know, simple stuff. It's just not simple when you have no idea how it fucking works. Like that guy. But right here, you're going to need Ohatsu to get across this river. Be careful here, the checkpoint's kind of shitty. And you can get hit by through the door, which... I don't understand how this makes it into games, being hit through geometry. You know, Dark Souls and Demon Souls are some of the worst examples of this, where enemies just hit you through bullshit. Yet you can't hit them often through bullshit. There are rare moments when you can, but for the most you rebound off and they hit you. And it's just... I understand if they want to make the game challenging, but making it blatantly unfair in those instances is not challenged. But do you see how this dude's axe is through the door? He's hit me through the door before, and the checkpoint was before I even switched to Ohatsu. So do not think that the door will give you a checkpoint, because it just doesn't. This is a big puzzle, but believe it or not, it's probably not too difficult, because the bigger they are, usually the less interesting they are to solve. You see what I mean? Got that one first time. You just have to, you know, be methodical. Ooh, Rosary of Health. That is a very interesting item. There are 3 main bars in this game. There's your drive bar, which is the purple one on the left that turns you into the Oni demon, which I don't think you've seen too much yet because I don't often use it. It's essentially a win button, and I'm having fun with this playthrough, you know, putting these challenging restrictions, and one of those restrictions is, you know, I only use the Oni mode when something is utter bullshit, and the only few moments I use it are towards the end of the game. In a fight that I really don't like, and against... It's just 2 bosses I dislike, so, you know, I don't use it too much. The second one is magic, the third one is life. You're going to be able to get 3 rosaries which each recover those bars over time. It's a pretty slow recovery, but it's constant. So if you have a spare 5 minutes, you can fully fill everything. I don't recommend it in the middle of a fight, for obvious reasons, but it still could make a difference if the fight is a long, arduous war of attrition. A little bit like this. This is Zakon, I think his name is. Not to be confused with the demon that eats light, who Goku faces off in Barbady's spaceship in the Majin Buu saga, or the Barbady saga, depending on how you break it down. He fights the exact same way he fought when we took him on with Tenkai. You know, he's literally the same fight. The only difference is now we have a much more powerful weapon, and in spite of it, it still doesn't kill him as quick as it should, because this fight is overly long and his pattern is nowhere near as complex enough for it to be all that interesting once you've figured it out. So, only thing you want to watch out for is getting stuck in an animation when he does this. If he hits you with that poke, he will hit you with every poke in that combo. It doesn't matter when you're playing a no damage run what you get hit by, because you got hit. This is the end of the fight. I risk taking a sloppy hit to finish him off, but it pays off, and we get the win. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and as always, you take care now.